Let's take a look at the blend modes in Photoshop. Now you can find the blend modes here, but for blend modes to be activated, you need to have two layers here. So I'm going to make another layer, and then after creating another layer, I can see my blend modes are now activated. Now blend modes are the way how the top layer would interact with the bottom layer. When I want these two layers to interact with each other in terms of colors, pixels, and contrast or luminosity, I can use blend modes, and how it will interact are these blend modes that determine how differently they would interact with each other. Let's say I choose the normal blending mode. I'm going to take a circle here. Okay, normal circle, and I'm going to place it here. Remove the stroke, and yeah. Now by default, it will be automatically normal. All the blending modes will be normal. So in this case, this layer would not interact with the below layer and will stay as it is. Now I'm going to go ahead and choose the other option, that is dissolve. In this case also, I don't see any difference in this circle. So, but when I reduce the opacity, I can see that these colors are now dotted. It looks like a noise effect given to this circle. Now as I go on reducing the noise opacity, the noise reduces in the circle. Let's try with another thing, that is a gradient. I'll take a new layer. We can go using reading this one, gradient. And use a radial gradient. Okay, I'm going to use this one. I'm going to choose now dissolve. Now you can see here the color is much intense and not much faded, and as it gradually go outside, that sort of fades out. So where the color fades out, the dots are much more farther away than the dots at the center. This color is much more tightly packed and intense, and these are much more scattered and separate. So it also depends on the color. If the color is intense, then the dots will be together and tightly packed. I can work on the opacity on this as well. So that's our dissolve blending mode. Let's take a look at the next blending mode, that is darken. I have taken a solid color here, and over that, this is a banded gradient. Now I'm going to apply darken to on this. Now as you can see, these three bands did blend with the background layer, but beyond that, nothing has blended. Now let's see why that happened. Go to normal. Now if I double click on this, you can see the brightness value. This is hue, saturation, brightness. The B value is 49%. Then give cancel, okay. And the B value here, let's go here and check. It's 45 here, and above that it will be 60%. So if it is above that had 59, so, and this 49, above 49, I won't be able to see anything else. If the brightness value is above 49, that is the background color. Here it is 45. So till 45 I was able to see, but here it gets 60, then 75, 90, and 100. So I won't be able to see beyond the 60%, 45% one. This 45%. Here I'll just type in 45. 45. There. So the 45 is here, and the next is 60. It will be 60 here. 60. And let's just change the mode to darken. So till 45 I was able to see, and beyond that it is gone. Let's check it out in a grayscale tone. Like I'm going to show one more example. I'm going to delete this color, these two. Delete this and keep this normal. And okay, I'm going to take a brush, and let's say I choose this color, and I'm going to click like so. Now I'm going to take a new layer. I'm going to take a little lighter shade. If I do, okay. Now if I do darken, it will be vanished. Now let's say I choose a darker shade. There you can see a little darker, just a little darker, even 1%. Let's say this is 45%, I'm going to give 46%. You'll be able to see, you won't be able to see because this is a little, okay. Now yeah, as you can see, it you can see only the darker shade is than this particular shade. So that's the darken blending mode. Next, we can take a look at the multiply blending mode. Let's apply the multiply blending mode to this and multiply. You can see the black stays black and the white has turned into this particular color. So let's assume this is, take a text, make it as 0, bigger. And this will be 1. Anything multiplied by 0 is always 0. So multiply would keep the blacks as blacks and will turn the white into the color itself. Okay. Now the one way you can use this multiply blending mode is you can add something that has white background and a black object, and that will totally work as the black object has nothing behind it. Unlike darken, this does not hide the pixels that are brighter than that. It just multiplies everything except the darkest color, that is the black. Let's take another example of how to use the multiply blending mode. Take this image. Let's take this image. This one. Open the image. Okay. It's not opening the image. Okay. So this here there's the image. I'm gonna open another image that is this one, or both of this. Okay, so in this image we have few birds and this as well. Let's just apply this. Okay, I'm gonna use the lasso tool and we'll select these birds. I'm gonna give Control J and click and drag these birds to this particular one. Okay, now I'll just go ahead and give multiply, and these birds have applied on my image, and we can see there's little bit of color discrepancy here, but we can work that out using just levels. I'm gonna use Control L, levels, bring down the white slider, and then your background has gone. I can increase the darkness of the birds. It will give me a little darker birds. Okay, so there I can use the multiply like so. Or I can use it another way, that is I can just open a logo that has white background like this. This white background, I can just take this logo, want to apply on this particular image, just go ahead and give multiply. And there, I would not have to do the whole cutout thing and then do it. I can just place it right like that. So that's our multiply blending mode. Let's take a look at the next blending mode, that is color burn. I'm going to use this image for this demonstration. I'm going to take a solid color as like orangish yellow, something like this, and give OK. Now I'm going to apply the color burn blending mode. Here you can see the blacks does remain black and the whites, the pure whites, remain white in this blending mode. If I take down opacity, color burn particularly is referred to increasing the intensity of the image. Opacity of 29. This will interact differently when we work on opacity and fill. If I bring down the fill, it will bring down the projection. Fill works much more beautifully and doesn't destroy that much of color when compared to opacity. Opacity does a job that is okay but not very acceptable. Fill gives rather beautiful results. I'm going to take a new layer and put it between here and use a black brush and one white brush. As you can see that this does not affect the pure white and the pure black. Now if I do multiply, it does affect the black. And the darken, we saw already what darken did. But in case of this, it will not affect the pure white and black. It will intensify the color that are rather gray. So this is our color burn blend mode. Next we have the linear burn blending mode. Color burn and linear burn are very much similar. There is only one difference. You can take a look. This is color burn, and if I put linear burn, there is only one difference. That in case of color burn, it did not affect the pure white and pure black, but linear burn does. This is the linear burn, and it is interacting with the pure white here. And in case of color burn, it leaves the pure white and black as it is. So that's the only difference between the color burn and the linear burn. And it is also similar to the color burn, that linear burn also works differently when it comes to fill and opacity changing. Full fill, and I'm going to decrease the opacity at 15%. It looks like this, and at already at 30% it looks like this. So that's the linear burn blending mode. Let's take a look at the next blending mode, that is the darker color. Darker color goes a step beyond what we did with the darken. Darken keeps the pixels that are not brighter than that, and let's see the darker color. It goes one more step beyond that. So the exaggerated version of the darken is the darker color, and that's our blending mode, darker color. Next we have the lighten blending mode. Now the lighten is what is exact opposite to darken. Here the darken, what darken did with the dark pixels, light is going to do with the white pixels. What the multiply did with the dark pixels here, the screen will do with the white pixels. See, they are the exact opposite of each other. One more application of screen is that we can use is, let's take a look how we can further use the screen blending mode. I'm going to place the sky stars image over the sky, make it a little bigger, and rotate it like so. Can make it bigger as per like that. And now if I change the blending mode to screen, I can get all these stars in the sky. I can further use the blend masking, and then take off the stars that are rather unwanted in here. I can even use the opacity or fill to just break it down. Reduce the opacity and then get some of them light and dark. Make the intensity different in all the stars. Here I can have it. Yeah, I can use a screen blending mode, and you can make beautiful composites using this. Moving on to the other blending modes, the color dodge is the exact opposite of color burn, and the linear dodge is the exact opposite of linear burn, and the exact opposite of darker color is the lighter color. Let's take an image for an example. I'm going to open this particular image. Okay, I'm going to take a solid color and this particular color. Okay, now let's do the color dodge. Bring down the opacity and fill and check the results. It kept the absolute white intact. Check it out with the brush tool. It's absolute black and absolute white as it is, while linear dodge would not do that. In case of linear dodge, it overlaps the black as well as white. Now let's take a look at the next blending option, that is overlay. Let's just take a copy of this layer, Control J, and I'm going to apply overlay now. Now what it does, it increases the darks and brightens up the brights. That is, you can say it increases the overall contrast in the image. This is a destructive way to work on this. You can rather just go to the levels or curves adjustment and then give overlay. And if you look at the calculated version of how the overlay looks, if you choose the overlay option, then it keeps the 50% gray as it is and will change the rest of the tones. Like this is the original tone. This is the original tone, and it kept the 50% gray as it is. Just take this image. I'm going to take this over the image and then apply this over the image as well. So this is 50% gray. It has kept the 50% gray as it is and have changed everything else. It kind of works on only midtones. Next we have is the soft light. It is a subtle version of overlay. And you can always use the opacity as well to control this. It does it very subtle way. Let's check with the calculative way. Overlay soft light, so it kept the 50% gray as it is, and feels like it has just toned down the opacity of the overlay blending mode. Next we have the hard light. Hard light works better when we apply blur on the image. Let's say I'm going to apply blur, filter, blur, Gaussian blur, apply and load it up with the blur, and then apply a hard light. As you can see that it does apply the blurs over the skin tone. You go back and change the blur amount. Can make that smart object. Now I'm gonna go and do the blur. Gaussian blur. Take it a little down, a little more. Okay, and now the hard light. It gave me a little soft, smooth effect around the skin. It is something that we don't get in the overlay option. Let's take a look at the linear light and vivid light. I'm going to switch the layers and I'm going to apply vivid light on this. As you can see in the vivid light, you can see the absolute white as white and black as black. In between colors have changed a bit. But if you change it to the linear light, that's not the case. It will not keep the pure white and blacks as it is. It's pretty much very close to what we saw in the color dodge and color burn. Now let's apply this to an image. Let's say this one. Apply this solid color and like so. Now vivid light. I can just bring down the opacity as well. You can also bring down the fill. A little bit of fill seems fine and works well on this and gives a beautiful effect. Let's see in the linear light. Linear light and vivid light act differently when controlled using fill rather than opacity and get better results. Vivid light and linear light. Let's take a look at the next blending mode that is called hard mix. I'll click on this and I have taken a sample of color wheel and blacks and whites just to see how it reacts when we give hard mix. When you give a hard mix, then the colors have been reduced to black, white, red, green, blue, RGB and the CMY. So the color will be reduced down to absolute basics that are primary, RGB colors or CMY colors or in black and white. So I'm going to delete this layer for now. Let's just apply on an image. This is the image. I'm going to apply solid color on this. So let's say blue. And give a hard mix. As you can see, the colors have been reduced down to red, blue, magenta, cyan, and a little bit of white and black as well. You can reduce the fill and see if that works out for you. You can use opacity as well. Opacity doesn't seem to be very effective in this case. Fills do work fine. Let's say I like the effect. I can just take the effect like so, and it did add the contrast because this belongs to a contrast group. say I'll change this to some hot color like yellow. Yeah, you can give a yellowish contrast to this one as well. Fire looks more intense in this case. So that's our hard mix. Let's take a look at the next blending modes that are hue, color, and saturation. I'm going to take a solid color, this like so, and I will change this to hue. As you can see, the color of the image, everything is now in red tone, particularly only red tone. The green is now red, and the jacket of the girl and skin and everything has turned into red tone. Now it is very important for the color of the background, like here, to have a root color so that it could change the hue. Hue here means this value hue, this value is hue, and this is the saturation, and this is the brightness. So hue will work particularly on this, saturation will work particularly on the saturation, and luminosity will work on the brightness. Hue means which color. Saturation means how much color, less color or more color. And brightness means the brightness of the color, luminosity. Okay, I chose the red and give OK. Let's say I'll just take off the color of half of this image. Let's say I'm going to select this girl half and give Shift Control U, the shortcut, to resaturate. Now if I switch on the layer, you can see I have applied the hue blending mode, but it has only changed the hue of the image that has color. So it is very important for image to have a particular color tone. I'll just undo this. Next, we'll take a look at the saturation. Take a look at the saturation. It is 100%. Now, if I bring down the saturation, it will also bring down the saturation of the background image. This will work particularly on the saturation. Hue could be anything. You can see that hue does not make any much of a difference, but the saturation does. If I increase the saturation a little bit more, or just you can give 0 and it will convert to black and white. Little will give a little saturation. Okay. Next is color. When you choose color, it will overlap everything into this particular color. In this case, if I change the half of it into black and white, Shift Control U to desaturate, Control D to deselect, and then it works unlike a hue blend mode. So to change color, this is a very good option. I'll just undo this. Okay, and I'm going to take a new layer and I'm going to just apply a little color to the lipstick, and you can see how this works. I'll take a brush, a soft brush. I'll take a selection of the lips as well. Okay, now I'm going to choose a red color, something like this red color. Just use a brush and start painting red. I can change the color to the color. Now, if I change this to hue, you can see the difference. It changed particularly the hue, and the color would add a little bit of intensity of the color as well. So I have to work and tweak on with the opacity or the fill to get the desired results. He does it rather smartly, so I don't have to work on the shadows as well. It gave me the shadows better. So just one thing, and you can change the color like so. You can do this with everything, including a jacket, hair color, and everything. Next is luminosity. It will change. Give Control J and just give Shift Control U to bring up down this. And you can see I have pumped up the brightness and shadows just by using the luminosity. I can even go and use the adjustment of black and white. Black and white. I can go and use the luminosity. I can work particularly on the tones lighting using this option. I can make the image pop, can make the greens dull or background dull. So this is before and this is after. A lot of change in the just by using luminosity.